It's honestly a surprise I haven't seen this. Hey everyone, welcome to Princess of Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my blind reaction to Coach Carter. This is a donation reward for Venom, so thank you as always, Venom. And this is a movie I've wanted to see for a long time because apparently a good amount of people saw this in like high school, from what I've heard. And it's like this is not one of the movies I ever saw in high school. Like we watched movies in high school, and including sports movies. I don't know what sport this touches on, by the way, but I'll get to that. Like, we watch stuff like Radio, Remember the Titans, Rudy, but I never saw this one. And it's like, I don't know. It's just none of my teachers that I ever had ever showed this one. I don't know why. So what I know about this movie is I know it stars Samuel L. Jackson, and he's a coach at a high school, I believe. And that's about it. I know this movie is, I believe, well received because I've heard people talking about it entirely positively. And I know it's like a sports movie to some degree. I don't know what sport. I don't know if it's basketball, baseball, football. And with Sam Jackson, it's just like it could be anything. I don't know. But I assume since it's titled after his character, I'm assuming he's like the major focus of it. It's going to be interesting to see like what the deal with that is, because a lot of these sports movies are either titled after the the main character who's like part of the team, like one of the students, or it's like titled after like the team itself or something like that. It's not usually like titled after the coach, you know, even if the coach is like a main character. Like you watch Remember the Titans, and Coach Yost and Coach Boone are two of the main characters for sure. But the students are just as much main characters too. It's a large cast, and like it's titled after the team as a whole because that's kind of where the focus lies, on the team. It's especially one of the big points of the movie. But this, it's like, I don't know. I assume it's going to be like he's just like this really great coach and really helps bring out the best in them and stuff. It's probably going to go beyond the whatever sport they are playing is, and he's going to help them out in terms of their life. A lot of these movies play out pretty much the same. They like, it's like, oh, we're using sports to like also address societal issues, family issues, sometimes racial issues. And that's fine. That there's nothing wrong with that as long as it's well written and well acted and etc. etc. Well directed. I have no problem with these movies having a similar like vibe to them. Again, as long as they're well done. And some of them are based on true stories as well. You gotta take into account as well. I don't know if this is, but I'm curious to find out. I mean, it's very possible it could be. But yeah, considering I've heard people talk about this like pretty much my entire adult life is like, again, oh, I saw this movie in high school. It's like, oh, I've even seen on like social media. It's like movies everybody watched in high school, and this was one of them. It's like I've never seen this. It's like, what? I don't know. I don't know. This movie came out, I think, in 2005, so about 20 years ago, which is insane. Which means I absolutely could have watched it in high school. I just never did. Hell, I watched Finding Nemo in high school, but not this. Which, hell, nothing wrong with that. Finding Nemo's great, but, you know. Yeah, I'm curious to see what this is like though. It's a pretty sizable movie. It's just over 2 hours long, which I assume includes credits. So it's a pretty long movie. But I'm excited to get into this and see what it's like. So let's check it out. Hold up just a sec. Before you click that link down in the description below to get to today's video, I want to remind you of all the awesome content we have both on this channel and the Princess of Gaming channel. Let's check it out. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So I looked it up because I was curious, as with any kind of movie that's based off a true story, is how true was it? And fun fact, the real life Ken Carter, who Sam Jackson played in this movie, actually had very direct involvement with this film and made sure that it was as close to reality as possible. There's some creative liberties here and there, but like the vast majority of the movie plays out pretty exactly as it happened for the most part. Um it's pretty damn accurate, even the ending. Like Ken Carter himself like wanted the ending to stay true to what happened, rather than the movie having, you know, a standard Hollywood happy ending. He had to actually make sure that happened to keep it accurate. And I really appreciate that. I really like that it didn't have like this cliche happy ending. Like, yeah, there's a lot of cliches in the film generally, and it is, you know, played up for general Hollywood film, you know, positivity. But I like that he kept a lot of this shit real. Um, the biggest change apparently was that the outside of his son, all of the named students here, all of the named players, were invented for the film. They're not like the real players that he had. So like Junior Battle, Timo Cruz, etc., weren't the actual students and everything. He didn't want to embarrass the real life people with like their histories and everything being portrayed on screen. So it's like he wanted to make sure that the spirit was there, the idea was there, even maybe some of the struggles were shown, but it didn't connect back to any specific real life people, which I think is very, very admirable. I think that's entirely fair because of how accurate he wanted to keep the film. He wanted to make sure that real life people, these former students of his, weren't affected by that. And I actually really think that's admirable. But let's actually talk about my thoughts on the movie. So, like I said, there were definitely some cliches in here. A lot of this is, you know, absolutely your kind of by the book, feel good sports movie where, or not even just necessarily sports movie, but your feel good high school movie where a new teacher, or in this case coach, comes in and guides the students who are in a district that's doing poorly to becoming better students, better people, etc., while also, you know, working on, in this case, the basketball game. We've seen this in a lot of other things. Probably my favorite depiction of this is the Hilary Swank film Freedom Writers, which I think is a phenomenal film, and I think is the best example of this kind of thing being done. Um, and it's also based off of a real true story, the story of the teacher Erin Gruel and her work to help these kids through writing learn to become better people and better themselves, and, you know, do better in school and stuff, connect with each other, learn about a lot of really important historical topics as well. It's a really powerful film that makes me cry. This movie didn't quite get there for me. There were a couple points where I was getting emotional, but I didn't quite get to the point of crying. And I think, weirdly enough, despite this movie being 2 hours long, or actually more like 2 hours, 15 minutes, I think the pacing was an issue here, weirdly enough. And I don't know exactly why, but for some reason, unlike a lot of movies like this, it felt like there wasn't enough time. And the funny thing is, a lot of movies like this are shorter. It almost feels like this should have been a series rather than a movie. Because I feel like there was a lot of, there were like, there wasn't enough time to really focus enough on certain things. And some things almost felt like they were like almost cut. Here, I'll give you an example. When Timo comes to Coach Carter's house after he loses his brother, and Coach is comforting him, being like really great to him. You see his son. You see Damien in the background watching them, and he's like looking at them as if he's like almost jealous of the way that his father's treating Timo, and almost like wondering about like, oh, is Timo like taking up all my father's attention? Are these other players taking up all of his attention? I changed schools because of this to be able to play with my dad again. And it never goes anywhere. I don't know if the look was meant to be something else, if it was meant to represent something else, like maybe he's like, oh, he's seeing how much this is changing people. But that's not how it came across. And it felt very off watching it, and it's like, what does that look for? Why are you like judgy? And speaking of Damien, like the thing is brought up early in the film where he's like, he gives this like contract to his father. It's like, I'm gonna do all this stuff you have in your contract for your other players, if you let me transfer to Richmond, but I'm going to actually raise it up. It's not going to be like a 2.3, it's like a 2.7 or whatever it was. I'm going to like do even better. I'm going to make sure it's like my conditions are even harder than theirs. And then that's never brought up again. Like, Damien actually for most of the movie is barely a character. At the beginning, it makes it seem like he's going to be like not necessarily the most important and most focused on of the players, but it seems like he's going to be bigger than he was, and he was honestly one of the least focused on. Junior was obviously the most focused on, which makes sense, but like everyone else was like so much more like of characters than Damien was. Like, outside of the moment where he's watching them, I think the only other moment he really like had focus at all was when Coach went and found them all at the mansion. Mansion might be a bit excessive, but you know what I mean. He found them all there, like at the pool, at the party, and everything, and like he specifically called out Damien. Outside of that, he is not the focus at all. And it felt like the entire thing with his extra contract was just needless almost. It felt like it just wasn't focused on enough. And you kind of have this problem with a lot of these types of movies where it's like you have an entire classroom of students, or in this case an entire basketball team, and you're not going to have time in a single movie's runtime to focus on all of them. In Freedom Writers, they focus on a good amount of them to a degree, but not every student in that class is given a lot of focus. The difference with that, though, is that the students who it builds up to have focus do have the focus. It never it never builds them up and then just drops them from that focus. here, it just felt like they were building him up to be a bigger character than he was and just dropped him. And it feels kind of sad that happened. Because I would have liked to see more with him. And I mean, maybe there just wasn't a lot to like talk about in terms of the themes and messages of the film that he went through. Because again, this was based off of a true story and was kept very accurate. So maybe he just, in real life, didn't have that big of a role compared to other students. Maybe he just kept to his contract and kept everything fine and never got into much trouble. But for a film, it kind of leaves it a bit disappointing, just as a viewing experience. Because it feels like his character just got abandoned at that point. Even if that's not exactly what it is, that it's what it feels like. Also, apparently this was Channing Tatum's film debut. That's really interesting. I did not realize that going into this. Of course, going into this, I didn't know Channing Tatum was going to be in it initially, so... I don't know. I just thought he started acting earlier than that. Maybe he was doing more TV at the time, and this was just his first actual movie role. But that's really interesting. Also, it's interesting that he didn't start doing film roles until the 2000s. I really thought he would have started in the 90s. It's just really interesting to see his character. Like he was more one of the more side characters. He wasn't like a big one, but he was always there and always felt like he had a role. You know what I mean? He was one of the ones that didn't have like a major role, that wasn't like a major character, but he always had like a part to play. He was always there. He was always active in the story. Give me a second here. And I want to bring up the poem by Marianne Williamson, Our Deepest Fear, which, as I said in the movie, I first heard in Akeelah and the Bee. For those who don't know, Akeelah and the Bee is a movie about a girl named Akeelah and spelling bees. It's a really great movie. And if I'm correct here, I should check to be sure. It came out in 2006, so it came out right around the same time as this, ironically, just a year later. It starred Keke Palmer and Lawrence Fishburne, but also had other greats like Angela Bassett, Curtis Armstrong, and others in it. It's a phenomenal film. It's kind of another one of these kind of films, but it's very specifically focused on one student and focused on the spelling bee stuff. But that's where I first heard this. So the fact that these two movies came out like a year apart from each other and used the same poem, was this poem just like really popular in the early 2000s? I don't know. But when I heard this, like, I don't know. I saw Akeelah and the Bee in high school. So that would have been between like 2008, no, 2007 and 2011. Because I actually did I did fail ninth grade the first time. I did have to take ninth grade over. Not exactly proud of that, but it is what it is. So between like 2007 and 2011, I was in high school. And one of those years, I don't know when it was during high school. I just know it was during high school I first saw this. And that's when I first heard this. So it was only like a few years after these movies came out. I saw Akeelah and the Bee, and I very much keyed into this poem because it's such a powerful, strong message. It talks to us about our fears of being strong rather than the fears of inadequacy. Not because we're afraid of being great exactly, but because we don't believe we deserve that. We're afraid of being strong. We're afraid of being great because we feel like, who are we to be smart, to be strong, to be capable? But who are we not to be? That's the point. That's the message. It's not about, like, all of this that we have going on. It's not about being afraid of all of these inadequacies and issues and troubles. Because everybody's afraid of that stuff. Everybody is worried about that stuff. Everybody has those anxieties. The fears we have to fight more than anything are the fears keeping us from rising above. The fears keeping us from believing we're not worthy of rising above. And that way we can rise above. And that's the message of this. It's like these students, even the principal of the school, had no faith, had no belief that they could be anything better. Because the school told them otherwise. Because the system told them otherwise. Society told them otherwise. And Coach Carter basically came around and said, fuck that shit. You are not, as long as I am coach, you are not going to look down on yourselves like that. You have excellence inside of you. And you have the right to achieve that. You deserve to achieve that. You just have to try. And it's something I've struggled with. And I think that's why this poem hits me as hard as it does. Why it's my favorite poem. Because it's something that I struggle with a lot. I have a lot of self-image issues. Not just physically, but about me as a person. And I'm like a queen of self-hatred. I cry myself to sleep because I hate myself so much. And I've even found myself suicidal because of it. My self-hatred has affected me my whole life. In different ways at different times, but my whole life. And for so long, because of things I was taught, because of the way society treated me, for liking the things that I did, for not adhering to the ways that they wanted me to, I felt like I could never be good enough for their standards. And that was my problem, holding myself to their standards rather than my own. And when I started to really figure out who I wanted to be, when I really started to figure out what I wanted from my life, I came out. I came to realize that I'm trans. I aspired to a greatness in myself that I could never see before because of the way other people told me to act, to think, to believe. The things I was told growing up that I couldn't be into as a guy. Assigned male at birth, to specify, but a guy I was raised as. I was told I couldn't be into certain things. I was told I couldn't like certain things. I was made feel bad for liking certain things. Any semblance of wanting to watch Barbie movies or have stuffed animals or wear dresses were met with resistance, and it ruined my childhood. It broke my heart and destroyed my self-confidence. And that's something that fully has never recovered since. Even now, 8 years after coming out, almost a decade, which is insane to think about for a number of reasons and makes me feel old, but that's not the point. Almost a decade after coming out, I still have that pain in me. And I don't know if it'll ever be fully gone. I don't know. But I think of this poem a lot. And I remind myself that I deserve to be great. That I deserve to aspire to my goals, to what I want from myself. And that doesn't have to align with what other people want for me. I have found happiness in myself since coming out. And even in the years since, I've come out in other different ways. And I've found other happinesses. And I've done things that meant a lot to me. Met people who have meant a lot to me. And my life has become better because of it, and my self-hatred has died down quite a lot. Like I said, it's not gone, and I don't know if it ever will be. But it's nowhere near the level that it was in most of my life. And unfortunately, I didn't have a Coach Carter to help me through that. I had to learn this through a lot of different methods and a lot of different people who helped me on smaller scales. Just one little thing here and there. One little discussion. Someone helping me understand something was wrong that I said or did. And in 2017, a couple people at a convention helped me, more than anyone, to really realize who I am and wanted to be. And that's why I came out just that same month. And why I hold both of those people in high regard. Because they helped me truly realize who I am. And I'm still learning. I'm still growing. That doesn't end just because I've made some successes and achieved some of my goals. You never stop growing and changing. And that's what Coach Carter here was trying to teach his students. That it's once you get out in the real world, once you're out of this school, once you're out of this team, you still have to keep going. He wasn't just trying to prepare them for the now, but for the later. For forever. That's why he was putting them as students first, before players. That's why he did the lockout, to help them get their grades up and become better people. That's why he, without hesitation, welcomed Timo into his house, despite this kid being covered in blood. Because he cared enough to do so. And that's all you gotta do sometimes. You gotta care about people. You gotta give a shit. Sometimes that's what you gotta do. It seems simple, but it can take a lot out of you. It can mean a lot to give a shit. And sometimes it can be dangerous. Sometimes it can be unpopular. Sometimes doing the right thing can be met with pushback and hate and violence. But if it's the right thing to do, it's always worth it. because the goods will always outweigh the bads. And it's something, again, that I'm still working on with myself. And I encourage everyone watching this to work on with themselves. And be there for others who need to work on this. This movie may not be the best example of this kind of film, this kind of trope, this kind of like idea and theme and message. It may not be the best example of this, but it's still a fucking example of it. It still gets that message across. It still has that heart. It still sends a message. And that is, we should strive to better ourselves because we deserve it. We don't need to earn that. We already have by being alive. All of us, every single one, deserves to be the best us we can be. And so, yeah, it was a good movie. Not great. Again, was pretty standard, pretty typical. Could have done a few things better, but by keeping it as accurate as possible to the real life story, you had to sacrifice some of that Hollywood movie magic. You had to sacrifice some of those standard tropes that, make us feel all warm and fuzzy inside. You had to sacrifice some of that just good quality filmmaking to be able to tell the story that needed to be told. And that's okay. And that's okay. It doesn't need to be the best. It just needs to speak. And I think it did. So tell me in the comments below, what did you think of Coach Carter? What did you think of the performances here? What did you think of the themes and messages? Have you heard this poem before? Have you seen Akeelah and the Bee? If you haven't, you should. Watch Akeelah and the Bee. It's great. Lawrence Fishburne's amazing in it. Keke Palmer's amazing in it. It's a good movie. I am now shilling for Akeelah and the Bee. We should probably end this. Tell me your thoughts down below. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Connie. I'm signing off. See y'all next time.